Before we start today's video, I just want to remind everyone, Crime After Crime, the podcast, coming September 1st, 2018, starring yours truly and Danielle Hallen, 2 true crime stories. Who can research and tell the best one? That's up to you. Be available everywhere you can find your favorite podcasts, and there's a link to the YouTube channel in the description box below. With all that said, let's turn on the Searchlight. Hey everybody, John Lorden here. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Brainscratch, Searchlight. We've got another tough case to look into today, another case that thankfully is getting some exposure thanks to a few local papers, a little touch in terms of national exposure thanks to NBC Dateline's online articles that they write on the Missing in America series. But outside of that, not a whole lot of national exposure. Now, the person that is missing, her name is Alexis Scott, and her mother has been working very hard on social media channels. I've listened to 3 different interviews that her mother has done sharing information about this case. Unfortunately, a few of those interviews don't really have a lot of views. One of them was on the Vanished podcast. Very good interview. Of course, I have links to all of this in the description box below. But let's go ahead and get started with this case. This is a real tough one because we think she went to a house party and then disappeared from there. So of course you would think, okay, at a house party, there's a ton of witnesses, a bunch of people, and there should be a ton of information about, when she left, was she hanging out with someone? It doesn't seem like there's that much of that level of detail, which is very troubling for a case like this. So Alexis Scott is 5'1", 20 years old when she disappeared. She would now be 21. She's got long black hair. Her eyes are brown. The weight here, they have 115 to 120, but her mom has been clear on several interviews that more like 105 to 110. She was fairly lean. She was known to wear some wigs. However, on the night that she went out, she just put her hair up in a bun, probably a bit like we see in the picture on our right here. But other than that, her mom said that she thinks that she found all of her wigs at home. So we can see she's got some tattoos. We're going to get into all of that description as well as we move forward. But let's start with a quote from her mother. Her mother's name is April Scott. "I just want to know where my daughter is. I'm not pointing fingers. I know it's a party. I know kids do things at parties that we may not necessarily approve of, but right now I just want to know where my daughter is. I want to know that she's okay. I need to know that she's safe, and I need some help." So we're going to start by reviewing the NamUs profile. Of course, I'm very happy to see that we already have a profile on Alexis here. Missing, she was 20 years old at the time she went missing. She is now 21. She's missing from Peoria, Illinois. The date of last contact is September 23rd, 2017. I believe that is a Saturday. However, the time frame that we're talking about is super early in the morning. So I would almost think of this more along the lines of she went out extremely late on Friday night. Her middle name is Camry, as we've touched on. Black African-American female. Height, they're listing here 5'3" to 5'8". And the first poster we started on actually said 5'1". So I'm seeing a ton of variance on the height. I don't know why we don't have that locked down. And as I mentioned before, the weight seems to be off here. Her mom's been very vocal that she's probably between 105 to 110 pounds. Definitely not 120 to 140. And you can see in this photo, she's fairly lean. Circumstances, date of last contact, September 23rd, 2017. Let me just say, I'm fairly impressed that the NamUs record was created so fast. It was created on October 1st, 2017. So for circumstances of disappearance, Alexis was last seen at a house party, 123 Richmond Avenue, Peoria. Let me just say, I've seen some variation in terms of the address. Let's just say the 100 block of Richmond Avenue in Peoria. On 9/23/17 between the hours of 4 to 6 a.m. Witness states that she left on foot after 5:30, but that's yet to be confirmed. And that is one of, actually there's many points of contention with this case, but her mother has talked about the fact that there's a witness that says, yeah, I saw her, it looked like she walked that direction. Then the witness later said, no, I saw her, but she walked the other direction. Then someone else said, no, I saw her, and she got into a blue Chevy Impala. Even in terms of how she got to the party is debated. There are two people that say that they drove her to the party. So a lot of conflicting information. Why is there so much conflicting information here? I think the likelihood that we have bad actors on this case is very, very high, and you're going to see why as we roll forward. Physical description: black hair, long black past the shoulders, brown eyes, both ears pierced. She's got a piercing in her under her lower lip and also a hole in her nose. She has stretch marks from childbirth. She is a mother. Unfortunately, her 2-year-old son is now missing his mother. In terms of tattoos, we got a bit to review. On her right shoulder, it says paw prints. Now, I've gone to the images section of this profile, and this is the best image in terms of seeing that tattoo. I can't really tell if they're paw prints. I get the feeling that it's more like a leopard pattern. You might kind of recognize it as a leopard pattern if you weren't very close to her. But we can see there's also some cursive. I believe it says Lily over here on her left shoulder as well. On top of that, on her left inner arm, royalty is written in cursive. On her right wrist, it says Trevon in cursive. On her right shoulder, it says Tevin Jr. in cursive. I believe Tevin is her son's name. Other physical characteristics: mother states Alexis removed her own dental braces, but the brackets remained on the lower teeth. So still some orthodontic hardware only on her lower teeth. Clothing and accessories: we've got blue jeans, a half shirt, and a pink jacket. If we take a look at a different poster that I found for her, this one actually says that she was wearing light colored blue jeans, a black zip-up hoodie with pink designs, and her hair was in a ponytail. I'm wondering if they mean pink as in the line that is sold at Victoria's Secret. That's just kind of what I'm thinking, but unfortunately, I'm not finding any photos of these particular items. That would be really helpful in a case like this as well. But unfortunately, I'm not seeing them here. So let's just go ahead and continue with the description that we got and move over to EastPeoriaTimesCourier.com. We're going to get some information, mainly once again from her mother, but also the lieutenant that's working the case. Here we have another photo of her. The lieutenant that's working the case, his name is Mike Boland, and he works with the Peoria Police Department. In 2017, there were 92 people reported missing in the city of Peoria, according to police department statistics. Of those, all but one, Alexis Scott, have been closed. Of course, we talk about this on the channel quite a bit, but many missing persons cases get solved usually many of them get solved within a few days. If it goes outside of that, many other ones will get solved within a few weeks. Then we have the rare occurrences that we're usually talking about here on the channel where people are missing for an extended period of time. And obviously, we're talking about a serious chunk of time now. We're coming up on a year that Alexis has been missing. Scott vanished the morning of September 23rd, 2017 after being at a party at a house in the 100 block of West Richmond Avenue, Boland said. Scott was at the party briefly. Having arrived there at about 5 a.m., she left a short time later, and that's where the trail stops. Police have talked to partygoers, friends, and family members, and went to a field near Canton in November where a person had taken a bloody mattress, some carpet, and padding to burn. An Illinois State Police forensic team found a burn pile with box springs and other material. Those were collected, and test results on that material are still pending. Boland said police have searched near Banner Marsh, Copperas Creek, and other areas off U.S. Route 24. Initial information, he said, led them to believe Scott might have been near a body of water, but nothing has come up to give any idea of what happened to her. So some things have happened in terms of this address since. First of all, it was searched a matter of weeks after she initially disappeared. Then it was searched again several months after that because someone that was living there was charged with some drug charges. He had basically been selling a drug to an undercover agent over the matter of a couple months. I believe it was fentanyl. Not familiar with that one, but doing some quick research on it. Apparently is a synthetic opiate. and is 100 times more powerful than morphine. Now, I don't want to go into the guy's name here, but the same person that was charged with this, I ran some other searches on him. I did find other charges, one specifically for carrying marijuana and drug paraphernalia. So just know that this house certainly has some activity around it. Outside of that, one of the things that her mother brings up on her interviews is the fact that there was a washer and dryer removed from the house fairly soon after Alexis disappeared. I think there's a lot to be taken from that. It is kind of strange. You know, you have a party all weekend and all of a sudden you're getting your washer and dryer removed right after that party. However, it seems like one of the detectives that's looking into this told her mother that no, these guys repair these types of items, and it's kind of it's not so strange that they would be doing something like that. Of course, I heard her mother also talk about a theory, a very dark theory, in where Alexis might have been in one of those items. I sincerely hope that that is not true, but outside of the drug activity that we're talking about at this address, we're going to find there's definitely some other things at play here which increase the risk of what Alexis was facing. But let's continue. Her 2-year-old son, Tevin, wonders why his mom isn't there. I tell my grandson that mommy's gone and she will be back. I tell my son the same thing. I need a positive support system around me, April Scott said. Just really feel for her mom. You can hear how it wears on her in the interviews. As the days and weeks go on, April Scott is encouraged by all those on social media who have helped her search for her daughter. Boland noted the hundreds of volunteers who populate Facebook groups that have spent countless hours searching. They have covered more ground and looked in more places than we, as the police alone, could have ever done, said Boland. So really good to hear that there is a good community rallying support around her. I know that there is someone that is basically kind of co-managing the Facebook page with her. I will have a link to the Facebook page down below as well, so you guys can check that out. If you live in the area, if you're local, you want to help with some searches, that is kind of the rally point for doing that kind of stuff. Or even if you want to buy a sticker for your car or some other items that they're selling to raise awareness around this, you can find all of that at the Facebook page. Over at pjstar.com, we see the police searched the home for clues about missing woman. The first search happened sometime before October 18th, 2017. I would bet just a day or two before that. So we are talking about a few weeks between when she actually disappeared and the police searched the location. It's unfortunate because there's another instance of strangeness that happens at this house. Eventually, it does get power washed. And of course, her mother is very curious about that as well. Moving forward to CentralIllinoisProud.com, we get a note that it's been several weeks since the family of Alexis Scott reported the 20-year-old missing, but Saturday, October 21st, family, friends, and community leaders gathered to continue searching for any sign of her. So once again, we're hearing about the great community support that's happening here. Here we actually have a photo of the searchers and people coming together for that particular search. And this article also touches on another important aspect of this investigation. The missing persons report was filed a few days after the fact. Let's take it from the article. It wasn't uncommon for Alexis Scott to be gone for days at a time, to go out on a Saturday night and not come home until Monday afternoon, but she always came home. That's why the 20-year-old Peoria woman's mom, April Allen Scott, waited until the Wednesday after September 23rd to call police and make the missing person report. Allen Scott holds out hope her daughter is still alive, but she can't ignore the amount of time that Scott hasn't called or seen her toddler son. Quote, something happened. She had no reason to just walk off, Allen Scott said. She would find a way to reach out to me. She hasn't. Over at Galesburg.com, I would like to call out Tom Lowy, who has also been following this case pretty closely and has written some very one article in particular that's very touching. We're going to share a bit of that towards the end of the video here, but let's learn a little bit more first about April. April has worked for District 150 as a teaching assistant for over 20 years. She's been a certified substitute for 2 years and worked to earn a master's in business administration. She worked even harder to find her daughter. Her hard work has turned up some tantalizing clues and triggered a possible connection to some of Alexis's activities earlier this year. Alexis met at least one man or a number of men who said they could help her start a modeling career, April said. I know that she went to at least one photo shoot. Cars started showing up at the home they share. They were nice cars, really nice cars, April said, and it was always late in the afternoon while it was still light, like happy hour time. No one ever came to the door. Alexis just left in them. April questioned her daughter about the activity. Alexis said she was working as an escort, that she was paid to go to parties and clubs to be eye candy for the men there. She said she was doing it to help her career. She said she was getting paid and being exposed to the kinds of people who could help her in her career. April confirmed her daughter did travel to Las Vegas at the end of August to be in town for the Mayweather-McGregor fight and to work as eye candy at a bachelor party. She believes the man who paid for Alexis's flight was an area promoter. The bachelor party was canceled and the trip to Las Vegas went bad. Sources told the Register Mail Alexis went to California with a number of men and she was later found in Sacramento. The sources say she had been physically abused. There's more details than that. According to the story that her mother tells, when she was found, she was completely naked. Luckily, there were some good Samaritans that found her. They took her to a store. They bought her some clothes. They took her in, got her back in touch with her mom. Her mom paid for a bus ticket to get her back home. I don't know how much you can print, but I know the men who live at the house on Richmond are involved with this promoter, April said. That was the last place Alexis was seen. Honestly, I don't know if the Las Vegas trip has anything at all to do with why she is missing now. I just don't know. And it's one of the tough aspects of this case because it happened relatively close to her disappearance, just about a month before you had this occurrence. And there's this unfortunate thing when you're looking into potential trafficking situations like this. There are mechanisms that they use for finding the people that they're going to traffic. And it sounds like some people that Alexis might have thought were her friends might have been enabling some of this trafficking mechanism. So what I worry about is that she didn't put that together, that she came home, healed up, kind of laid low for a period of a couple weeks. Who knows if those people that might have been grooming her over a prolonged period of time reached back out to her, said they don't know what happened out there. They didn't know those guys, but hey, we miss you. We're having this party. Why don't you come back around? We also don't have great detail in terms of the interaction, what happened in Sacramento. Did she run away from a situation? Kind of sounds like she did. I mean, if she's found naked and beat up, I don't think that they dropped her off. Well, I guess there's a slight chance that they could have dropped her off willingly. We have heard of that in some other cases, but I don't know. There's a lot to this that is really troubling. Of course, her mom asked her about this, and she didn't talk to her mom straight about what happened out here. I think she was trying to protect her mom from the truth of knowing what actually happened. However, she did talk to someone that was on the bus with her, and her mom has been in contact with that person. So I don't want to go into too much of the kind of unsubstantiated information. Just know that if you check out any of the interviews below, if you listen to the Vanish podcast, you will hear all the details about what supposedly happened on this trip. I also don't quite understand the linkage between the people that she went on this trip with to the actual house. But I can tell you that I know her mom's working very hard. And if her mom says that she found a link there, I certainly do believe that. So this is one of those cases where something very bad could have happened. It's possible she escaped a dangerous situation and then got snared again. But there's other things that could possibly be going on here as well. I know one of the situations her mom brought up in an interview is possibly if she was doing some type of drug at this party, kind of the accidental overdose situation that we talk about time and time again on this channel, and that they had to hide her to basically make sure that they didn't get in trouble for whatever their part was in terms of supplying her with what she might have overdosed on. So a lot of different angles going on in this case. And I think that the fact that we are talking about someone that admittedly worked as an escort does limit some of the press that you're going to get on a case like this. It's unfortunate. I don't believe in it personally, obviously, which is why I'm talking about it here. But we do kind of see this trend time and time again. I'm just really thankful, and that's why I want to call out the reporters that are working on this, including the reporter that interviewed her. There's a few people that are just, it moves me to see people open themselves up to caring about someone when a lot of other people would say, I've got all these reasons not to care about this person. And this is one of those stories that kind of falls into that criteria. So I'm just thankful that, I'm thankful that April is finding people that are willing to really look into this a bit more and to help her. Let's continue once again with another article at centralillinoisproud.com. This is from February 25th, 2018. A Peoria mother says she's not giving up. Today she held a fundraiser with the hope of hiring someone to get more answers. The mother says the police department isn't doing enough to help in the search for her daughter. I expected much more from the police department, said Scott. She said she hopes the fundraiser will afford her the opportunity to hire a private investigator. Right now, we're under $3,000 and we're hoping to get to our $10,000 mark, said the mother. I think April is on a really good track with that. There are certain cases where I feel like a private investigator could be very beneficial, and I think this is one of those cases because we're talking about these very deep and dark interpersonal dynamics that, quite honestly, as soon as the light of the law or anyone flashing a badge walks around this, you're just going to have everyone scurry and run off in their directions and try to hide from having to talk to anyone. A private investigator doesn't necessarily run into that same resistance. Private investigator can use some methods that police officers don't necessarily have access to for eliciting information. So I'm hopeful that this fundraiser is going well for April, but I'm really happy to hear that she's thinking along these lines. I think it's an important next step in all this. Another article from Central Illinois Proud. Once again, I just want to thank these publications for sticking with this story. April 7th, 2018, search continues for missing Alexis Scott. Saturday, police officers split up in groups to begin searching areas around Rice Lake and Banner Marsh. They were joined by close to 50 volunteers. The groups were aided by search dogs and boats equipped with sonar technology. It's really moving that 50 volunteers got together to help try to find Alexis and to really rally around April and keep supporting her efforts. And I really appreciate everyone that's doing that is helping this woman search for her daughter. I'm really moved by that, and that's why I wanted to join you guys in some way and try to help from where I can also. In the description box below, you're going to find all kinds of other links. I'm going to have a link to the NBC News article down there. Usually they do a pretty good kind of overall synopsis on stories like this. Of course, I've got the link to the Facebook group. I've got the interviews that I reviewed. I really recommend that you guys check out the Vanished podcast. I think most of you know I'm a bit of a fan of that podcast, but in terms of the quality of the interviews and the line of questioning, Marissa always does such a really good job. I really think that's worth your time if you want to learn more about this case. I also have a link to a Web Sleuths thread, but unfortunately it's only a couple pages. There is a Reddit thread, but once again, not a whole lot of information or detail there. But I did want to end this video with some words by Tom Lowy once again. And this is an article that he really engineered trying to get people to sign a particular petition to essentially get the FBI's assistance on this case. Unfortunately, the petition has been closed. He did help get 1,500 signatures on that. I wish this was still open because I would certainly add my signature and ask you wonderful brain scratchers out there that are moved to do so to also add your signatures here. But unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. The petition is closed. But let's end with some words from Tom here. Even in the age of nonstop cable programming about missing people on channels like Investigation Discovery, many of us still judge the value or background of the missing, especially missing women. And far too often, the whereabouts or fate of missing women of color is simply overlooked. It's easy to shrug our collective shoulders when a young woman like Scott, who occasionally resorted to posting ads on social media sites like Backpage and Craigslist, doesn't come home, leaving behind a bewildered little boy and a distraught mother. Scott probably did things for money you wouldn't want your daughter or wife to do. That's the harsh reality. It's a reality Scott either chose or was coerced into. Either way, no decision she made should have condemned her to the ranks of the missing. And I really agree with that, obviously. And I know many of you do as well. A life is a life, and we are all just important as everyone else here. And a missing person affects more than the person that is actually just missing. It affects their whole family. It affects all of their friends. An entire circle of people are hurt in cases like this. Now, unfortunately, as I mentioned, the petition is closed. However, there is a GoFundMe that is being run for helping with expenses. I know on the Facebook page, I heard them talking about the fact that they've spent $1,000 just in terms of, copies and getting materials together for the search. The searches of this nature are not cheap. The families need support, and this GoFundMe is basically here to do that specifically for the search for Alexis and to help support her mother, April, in doing all of that. I don't know in particular if this GoFundMe is specifically to help with the private investigator. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't, but just know that it is here. They are going for a goal of $20,000. They are at currently just under $5,000. On behalf of myself and my amazing Patreon, PayPal supporters, anyone that buys Lord and Arts merchandise, all of you wonderful brain scratchers out there, I'm going to be making a donation to this fund as well to help April continue her search for Alexis. And once again, not only does my heart go out to this family and everyone touched by this case, I am so honored and proud of the friends and the community that are growing around this case and helping to support this effort. You guys are really amazing in my book. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for sharing this story. Particularly if you have friends that live in the Illinois area, please share this video with them. But keep in mind, we're talking about a potential trafficking situation here. There's a very good chance that Alexis could have been moved to some other part of the country, potentially even internationally. So let's try to raise exposure, keep those eyes, ears, and hearts open everywhere we can, looking for Alexis. Before we move on to the comments from last week's video, I have to thank several new patrons, Melissa Quint, Leah Furness, Megan Ray Pritchard, and Rebecca Harbaugh. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Patreon and helping to support me and helping to support me doing things like I did in this episode. I truly appreciate it. I cannot do it without you guys. On top of that, Sharon Keeley has increased her pledge. Thank you so much, Sharon. So let's talk about comments. Last week's episode was the case of Sebastian Ty Husted. You might remember he is the young man that started a new job, power washing hog farms. And his sister came on the channel, gave us an interview because there was really limited media. She had done a bit of good work trying to get some attention, but we wanted to help raise exposure on that case as well. Ty, as we'll call him moving forward, got a ride with a coworker to the job, apparently called his brother from the job saying something weird was going on. Can you come and get me? And then all of a sudden communication stopped. Ty has not been found. First of all, in last week's episode, we talked about NamUs, and I have added Ty's record to NamUs. It is still currently in pending status, but I've talked to the administrator at NamUs that's working on the case. Thankfully, she's someone that I know that I've communicated with before, given her some new details to update on the case that I submitted. I expect that it will probably get out of pending status and be fully posted within a matter of days. NamUs is usually fairly good about getting to that stuff quickly. So that's about all that I have for the updates on this. I've still been in touch with Aisha. We've been talking back and forth over the past week, just trying to kick around ideas and other possibilities on this case. Sharon Keeley says, I think we're all going to agree that the answers lay with Jason, his workmate. I think foul play, most definitely. Sad but true. Sharon, I'm afraid you might be right. With the information that was presented from Aisha and just asking her directly, it's fairly obvious that that is where her fears and her mind are with this case as well. I do still have a part of me that's holding on to the possibility just thinking about how young Ty is, that maybe he wanted to disappear. But if that is the case, then we also have to believe that Jason, his coworker and kind of a buddy, but only for a few weeks, is willing to have participated in his disappearance in some way, like maybe is not telling officers where he saw him go, or if someone came to pick him up or something along those lines. Or has that information been shared with officers and they just haven't done a final confirmation, got in touch with Ty to confirm that he is fine, and then got that message back to Aisha? There's a couple of stopgaps if we look at that potential theory that might be stopping the message from getting back to Aisha that Ty is actually fine. So there is a part of me that is still holding on to hope in this case for that type of outcome. But it is strange, especially with some of the stuff that we've heard that Jason has said online. I've seen some of the messages for myself. I really have to keep in mind, some people are not great with how they word things. But when you say something like, yeah, I know this guy's missing, but even if I knew something, I wouldn't tell you, that certainly raises people's suspicions, not in a great way. However, some people using social media don't understand that not everything is about grabbing attention or, trying to be flip, sarcastic all the time. Is that just this guy thinking that, hey, I can get a little attention off of this if I kind of, act like I don't care, or maybe I do know something? I have seen cases before where people have used social media like that in these very troubling cases, simply as a mechanism for getting attention. And I don't know that they're necessarily bad people. I just think that they don't realize what they're doing to the people on the other end of that screen. The Sasselberger says, I'd assume Jason would have knowledge of plenty of places that still had livestock. They should track his phone, as someone else mentioned. I would like to think that investigators looking into this case are doing that, have at least subpoenaed his phone records, checked the pings on that to see where he was. Did he leave during the workday at any point in a way that didn't make sense? Did he bring the vehicle back home? Another consideration here is they were actually in a company-owned vehicle. Is there any kind of tracking that might be part of that? Is there some device? Some companies put devices in their vehicles so they can track what their employees are doing, or if their employees are actually, following the law when they're driving around their property. Is there something like that that could potentially be looked at as well? I'd really hope investigators are looking that way, Sasselberger. Thank you so much for your comment. Hannah Laurie says, I truly hope Ty left of his own accord. You are a lovely person, Aisha. And let me just say, you guys had a lot of very, very kind and sweet words for Aisha as well. And I appreciate that, because I know it's not easy for her to do what she's been doing. And she has been working through that. She's been taking every step that I think is important when you're working on a case like that. And it's obvious how much she loves Ty and that she's missing him. And Hannah, I'm with you. I do hope that's the conclusion of this story. I would love to hear, hopefully sooner rather than later, that Ty has been located. He just wanted to run away from his life. This Jason guy helped him do that. Or he, just left the work site, didn't even tell this Jason guy where he went. Something along those lines. I do think it's a possibility, and I do think that we should hold on to that hope. There's also the possibility there's something else completely at play here that we just have no insight into whatsoever. There could be a party that just didn't come out in this version of the story that has somehow affected this in some way. Is that party potentially responsible for maybe intimidating Jason into not commenting on this case or making these kind of sideways comments that he has been? There could be other stressors on this case that we don't know about. We have to kind of always keep that in our mind, particularly when we're doing an interview situation, because when we're interviewing someone, they've been living in this. They've been drilling their focus on particular things. That is part of being in an investigation. So keep in mind, we're talking to Aisha at a point where this is the information she's collected so far. This is the conclusion that she's come to with that information. That could change very dramatically in a very short period of time if new information came up, which I'm also hoping for, and hoping that the video helps elicit as well. Marcus Freestone. Living in Britain, I'm constantly amazed by the lack of police activity in many of these cases. It seems that if someone doesn't want to cooperate with the police, they are left alone. WTF? Getting a lawyer in America seems to make you untouchable as far as the police are concerned. Here, if the police want to question you about a crime you are suspected of involvement in, you can refuse and then be arrested and taken in for questioning. It is mandatory to have a legal representative with you when questioned unless you waive that right, but they can in no way stop you being questioned. It is said by many people here that the law is on the side of the criminals, but it seems to me to be much worse in America. If this case happened here, Jason would be thoroughly investigated and questioned and would almost certainly be on trial for murder by now, even without a body having been found. The idea that he can just walk away when he's the prime and only suspect in a murder is bizarre to me. Marcus, thank you so much for sharing a different point of view. It's one of the things that I truly appreciate about doing my channel and having an international audience is learning about these things. I am also a bit of a fan of television that is produced in Britain. There is a show that my wife has actually kind of got me into watching lately about landlords out there and the laws that they deal with. To your point, the laws seem to really focus on the person that you would typically consider the criminal. But I don't know that that's a terrible thing, because by the time the law then moves to act, they have been so, I don't want to say kind, but they've really kind of checked off all the possibilities of, is this a person that is just in a temporary bad situation and they're doing their best, but they can't? There's such a long process that I'm seeing that goes on with some of these. And I'm also noticing that in Britain, there's a lot of social services that we don't quite have a counterpart to here in the US. So I get it. I get it that things are certainly different. I can certainly support your comment about it does seem in certain cases that if someone gets a lawyer that the police just kind of, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. I don't know if that's the truth of it. I do think it seems like that occurs in several cases. And here, like I was saying a little earlier, we have to keep in mind that we've heard a version of this story, but quite honestly, we don't know that Jason is the only suspect. What if there was someone else that was at the farm? You know, we know that those two guys went there together alone to go work there, but we know nothing really about the area. We don't know if someone was watching the two of them, could have followed them. We don't know if someone had reason to follow one of them. Maybe one of them owed someone money, something along those lines, and was followed there. There's a lot of other potential scenarios that I can see going on in something like this. The thing that it keeps coming back to, the sticky point in all this, is really Jason. And let me just put the word out that, Jason, if you happen to see this and you think you can clear this stuff up for us, you've got an open invite. I would absolutely bring you on the channel, do an interview with you, and get that information out. I can tell you, based on the information I've seen, I don't know that he'll do that, but the invite is certainly there. I think that he could potentially shift the focus, at least the public perception of this case, fairly dramatically if he gave us some better detail about what actually happened on that day. I mean, there's very simple questions. I know you guys were bringing them up, and I didn't even include them here because I just don't have the answers. You know, Jason really holds a significant aspect to this investigation, and unfortunately, that information just hasn't been shared with us. But I'm very appreciative that so many of you out there are so caring and concerned about this case, and thank you for helping me raise exposure to it. I hope you guys will do the same for the case we talked about today as well with Alexis Scott to help her mother, April. Thank you for caring about these cases like I do. I appreciate having you guys out there. Take care, and I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new Brainscratch.